Tonight's broadcasts are about your voices here on CNN. In the middle of the showdown over raising the debt ceiling, a sobering new picture has emerged of wealth in America, and it is not pretty. The economic gap between whites and minorities has grown even larger. The median wealth for white households in America is now nearly 20 times more than that of blacks and Hispanics. Just 4 years earlier, the gap was only a third that amount. National Urban League President Mark Mariel joins me now from Boston, where the Urban League is holding its annual convention. Thank you for joining us, sir. As we talk about
Donna, good to be with you.
Thank you. Listen, we're going to get to the nuts and bolts of this particular study, but let's talk about, can we talk about this debt crisis in Washington and who would be affected by it, who is affected by it, and would possibly be affected by a default?
Well, what's very clear is that the Boehner plan, having taken a look at what the House passed, that would impose extreme budget cuts on programs that help people, on education, job training, and
Mr.
housing.
Mariel, I have to ask you this, and I did it with Senator Rand Paul. Just the answer to the questions. Who is going to be? Is it minorities? Who would be affected most by a default? And
I think
if the situation isn't corrected there.
I think the whole nation would be affected by default. I think that poor people, working people, and communities of color would be devastated by extreme budget cuts if that were the price of getting a debt ceiling increase through the Congress. It's very important that while a default is indeed a risk, extreme budget cuts, like the type that are being discussed, like the type in the Boehner plan, are not in the best interest of the nation. I think it would affect the nation's economy in a dramatic negative way.
The debt crisis is a topic there at your national convention?
You know, the debt crisis combined with jobs, I think the thinking here of our conferees and certainly the National Urban League is that what Congress should be focused on is on jobs and the need for there to be a national jobs plan. There's a great deal of concern that an extreme group of people is holding the nation hostage. Some members of the House of Representatives demanding extreme budget cuts in exchange for their vote on something that's been routine for some 70 years, and that is to increase the debt ceiling for spending that's already taken place.
And Mr. Mariel, what are people saying there about the debt crisis at the National Convention?
I think they're saying that the crisis is a manufactured crisis, meaning that the debt ceiling increase could have passed long ago, and that tying it to extreme spending cuts, extreme program cuts of the type that would hurt people is just something that is a political issue, separate and apart from really the routine matter of increasing the debt ceiling, which the Congress has done many times over the years.
Let's talk about the main reason we have you here, and that is this study that we're talking about. The median wealth for white households in America is now nearly 20 times more than that of blacks and Hispanics, and just 4 years earlier the gap was only a third of that. There is a graphic that we put up on the screen there. Why did the recession, Mr. Mariel, hit minorities so hard, especially African Americans?
I think because minorities came to the recession with less assets, with less savings, with less investments, and with less of a cushion. So in fact, if all of your wealth is in your home and you lose the equity in your home, it's going to devastate you dramatically. I think for many white Americans, although it must be said that this recession has affected people across the board, but people of color more dramatically, it has to be said that if you came to the recession with new wealth, with just the first generation of having a higher income, maybe the first generation of being a homeowner, then in fact the recession has really placed you back. A companion report that we've released here in Boston documents that this recession may have cost the black middle class 30 years of gains. Yeah. This is a tragedy for this nation, and I might add, and while the Pew Report talks about African Americans, the gap between Americans with wealth and the rest of the nation has increased substantially, regardless of race, over the last 30 years.
Mark Mariel, the president of the National Urban League, thank you so much. We appreciate you coming on, and we hope you have a great convention.